There are three convictions, three truths that came through when I began building out this mission. Each one are weaved into my work, and they have been since the very first day. They came through me from divine at the inception of what I wanted my mission to look like, the gaps I was seeing, and the patterns that started to emerge over the many years in voice clinics, and then stepping into a new way of bringing this modality, this magic instrument that we hold within our neck, to the forefront of our well-being and our worthiness. The first conviction, the first truth, voice is a vital asset for both your personal life, your work life, everything. When you think of what you would do if you didn't have your voice, that's a very scary thought. As humans, we rely on this ability to communicate, especially through sound. And so when we look at this instrument, voice is a vital asset. That is a conviction that I hold throughout this process. When we care for an asset, we invest in it, it returns to us better, stronger, and more like ourselves. So you can care for your voice just like you care for the rest of your body. You can care for it in the way you pay attention to what it's telling you. You can care for it by instilling habits that keep it healthy and prevent injury long term. Because think about it. Do you feel prepared if your voice was scratchy, hoarse, you lost it for a period of a few days to a few weeks to a few months? How would that impact your job? What if you had a job interview coming up? What if you had a speaking engagement on the books? Would that impact your relationships, your financial stability, even just how you start to engage with others? Because would you feel like you could show up fully if your voice was not also showing up as fully for you? When you take care of your voice and it remains stronger, clearer, sounding very natural for you, then you are someone who is going to be able to communicate more effectively over the duration of your life. And this is really important because for years, the variety of voice users, professional, occupational voice users, those who rely on this instrument for their livelihood that came into the clinics were at higher risk for voice injury. And yet 9 times out of 10, they would say, why didn't I know about this sooner? Why didn't I know I could take care of my voice? What are the preventative routines that I can use to reduce risk of injury to ensure that it really does elevate the sound, the effectiveness, and the mechanics for long term? Because that investment means, just like other parts of your body, you will get to see those returns time and time again. So voice is a vital asset is conviction number 1. The truth or conviction in number 2 is voice is a barometer. How you sound impacts how you're perceived. So when you tune in to the physical voice, as well as your inner voice, your intuition, you can align those to sound your most true, authentic, whole, and worthy self. Now, when those are out of alignment, there are various factors that can affect that. For example, emotional state. If you've been upset, if you're stressed, if you're tired, the physical state of your overall health, if there's other underlying conditions, your breath support, the amount of talking, the dose or load that you have to use every week to speak for all your activities, underlying beliefs, whether they are limiting beliefs or empowering beliefs, and your identity, who you identify as this being in a world where you can choose how you want to show up. All of those factors can be revealed through how you sound and how you speak. They influence your voice, they influence the physicality of it, and they can sometimes give a signal that comes out as a symptom. It'll be quiet, maybe very subtle, not so noticeable, but if overlooked for too long, it will become louder. That is the barometer giving you a clue, a signal that something is off. And so it's up to you to start to pay attention, to listen, and act accordingly. This conviction stems from the misalignments that can come from saying words and having them not exactly match how we intended them to come across. This is most often known as tone of voice. A simple example would be if you're feeling tired and someone asks you to go to a party that night and you say, "Yeah, let's go out to that party." In an attempt to sound exciting and on board, there will be a disconnect because internally you're thinking, "Oh, hell no, I do not want to go out tonight. I need to cozy up, read a book, and have a quiet evening." And so that can show up and cause a communication breakdown because there will be that underlying sense of, "Oh, I don't really want to do this. I don't really want to be here." A reduction in trust and a misalignment in showcasing and speaking as who you really are. So ultimately, it becomes you speaking not as your true self, which can become, over time, a stressor on your voice, on how much you trust yourself, on how confident you feel in asserting yourself. And humans are quite adept at picking up on those subtle, under-the-surface cues that make them go, I guess I like what she's saying, but something seems off. So if someone picks up the phone and says, "Hello," and the person on the other side says, "Are you okay?" Even if you've only said a few sentences, they know, something is wrong. Maybe you were crying moments before. Maybe something upset you. So humans have this ability, but often when we don't see that connection as starting internally, we tend to think it's based on external circumstances. So if we go a level deeper, if you're noticing your communication interactions are breaking down, or you're being criticized for your, quote, tone of voice, that can be a reflection of some healing that is needed that may be not yet seen. The way I work with my clients in this, activating that insight, I can see, hear, sense moments and situations where as you are using your voice, there may be that mismatch. I call that my Voice Activation Consultation. And that's something that is a first step that a lot of folks take to just dig a little deeper, to become aware, because that's always the way we have to start any change, is first by awareness. The more you're then able to level up your ability to know your voice, get familiar with what it's telling you, the more you'll experience major shifts in aligning with what you say, how you intended to say it, and embodying that feeling so powerfully that that creates your new identity of someone who not only cares for this instrument, but wields it powerfully. This can create amazing connections, transparency, and genuineness across all your relationships. Now, at first, it can feel a little awkward and stretchy too, because the things that we have to do to unravel and decondition those old layers and those factors that are contributing can sometimes feel like, I don't want to give up what's familiar. I don't want to stray away from the safety of how I am now. But in order to step forward, in order to stretch ourselves and grow, we have to be willing to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And that's where, when having a guide, someone to hold space and believe in your capabilities, can make all the difference as you navigate those changes. The third conviction, and more recently, my divine intuition has been showing me that this is one that really is foundational to them all. The third truth: love your voice, love yourself. If you don't love yourself wholly, your self-worth falters. If you're disconnected from your self-worth, you're less loving towards many aspects of who you are. And often self-criticism and judgment then run rampant. This can cause a cycle of dissonance and disconnect, and that can impact your communication and your well-being. If not addressed, symptoms have manifested in the folks that I've worked with in strain, vocal fatigue, a weak sound, restricted, feeling like the words are stuck in the throat, unable to say what you really want to, a tightness or tension through the neck, through the breath, through the chest, difficulty projecting, a lack of clarity, both in the sounds and how you are speaking under high pressure situations. I'm curious if you listen to yourself on playback and you cringe, you physically tense or recoil, even saying ew. That is the conditioning and limiting belief you carry as a vibration underneath everything you say. When your vocal folds then vibrate physically to make that sound, that underlying vibrational pattern of ew and dislike permeates, and that's released out to the listener. If you hate the sound of your own voice, then subconsciously you are recycling and emanating that negative energy, and thus are more likely to experience lack, scarcity, and negative perceptions in return. Yet, meanwhile, you think that, oh, you're just annoyed that people misunderstand you, or it must just be because of the tone of voice that you're using, and you try all these surface level tactics to sound more confident or to feel more authoritative. And all the while, it comes down to looking within, choosing to love your voice. By doing so, you establish that intentional relationship with it, caring for the health, the expressiveness, and the power that can infuse all your interactions. When you love your voice, you love yourself, and the vitality of who you truly are can shine and ripple out for the benefit of all.